Shakuhachi Lessons. I am Sean Renzo Head, your licensed Shakuhachi teacher. So today we're going to talk about how to play long flutes. And this is actually one of my weaknesses is working with longer flutes. I actually specialize more with short flutes, 1.5, 1.6, 7, 8, and even 2.0. Behind me, I do have over here, I have my flutes. This is the 2.0, 2.1, 2.3, and then in my hands is the 2.5, which I had specifically made for me. This is actually one of the only Jinashi flutes that Yozan made. So I'm going to show you about how I go about trying to play this because it's definitely not easy, and I think a lot of people, when they first start working with long flutes, they have a lot of frustration and they wonder, why is the sound not coming out? What am I doing wrong? And a lot of times it just happens to be all up here with the lips, and a lot of there's a lot of tension here in the face. So earlier when in a previous video I talked about making your first sound in Shakuhachi, and I talked how I didn't actually like this sort of thing to make the first sound where you smile. That a lot of teachers call it the Buddha smile. That works really well for small flutes, and the reason why is because you need a tighter embouchure to make that really nice piercing strong sound. But long flutes don't necessarily work that way. What they're actually going to need more of is a relaxed embouchure. And the other thing that long flutes need a lot of is that air pressure. So if you remember in my tone video, I talked about this thing, the Voldine. You definitely need this. I know it looks really weird and it looks like some sort of smoking apparatus for like weed. It's not. It really is so helpful, and this is really the reason why I think I can play long flutes now, is because I've trained myself on how to take in air properly and really send it all the way down into the belly rather than breathing into the diaphragm like this, versus, which is completely different feeling. So breathing into the lungs down here versus breathing up here, you're going to have more access to air and you'll be able to send off the air a lot better. So try to get a little bit of a close-up of this. It's actually kind of weird to lean forward and play, but as you can see, it's a lot different than the embouchure for the smaller flutes. The embouchure is much larger. So the way to go about it, and the way that I think about it, even with smaller flutes too, is I think of this opening, like just opening of the mouth and relaxing the cheeks and thinking of the syllable ha, or the word like the word ha, and you go ha all the way to an oo, and you're blowing out that air. And as soon as you hit that point, what you can do, or once you get that feeling, what you can do is add the flute with it and just start blowing out air. And then you're going to hit that point of, oh, there's sound coming, and then you tighten it just a little bit, little by little, and you'll start to notice that the sound's coming out more strong. And then watch what happens when I keep going. Then I start going up the octaves. So the reason why a lot of people find the longer flutes so difficult at first is because when they start playing, they're used to a 1.8. They're used to that feeling in that embouchure. So if I use my 1.8 embouchure, I'm going to be in that con register. And then here you can already hear, if I keep that embouchure, it wants to jump up right away to go all the way to that con register. So it's all about relaxing the face and just keeping everything really this way, and then slowly adding just a little bit of tension. What makes Shakuhachi such a difficult instrument is that it's easy to get tension, and we actually need a little bit. But the more that you can relax, especially in the shoulders, if the shoulders can drop, your mouth can just really use the muscles that you own, the correct amount of tension for the muscles all along here and with the bottom lip. You're going to be a lot more successful with these lower flutes, especially. Another thing that I have to tell a lot of students is, a lot of students when they play, they sit back or they lean forward too much, and that also causes a lot of different problems performance wise. So for example, when I was leaning forward like this to show you the embouchure and I was trying to play, it didn't come out right away because the mechanics of the flute, when it changes how you have to play, and you have to readjust really quickly. Okay, so that's for making the sound outwards and blowing the note itself. So, but what about fingering? That's one thing that I really do want to talk about, because for me, I actually don't have, my hands are really not that big, but I still use the regular, this regular fingering. I don't use my pinkies at all. So, but what's different about my flute is, you notice that the holes are, zigzagged, right? So what this is actually called is chidori, is what they call this. So actually, it's kind of funny. The meaning of chidori is a drunken bird. So you have to think of it like walking like this, and that's where the zigzag comes from. So there are two options. There is the piper's fingering, where people do this. They wrap over the fingers a little bit more, so that way it's a little bit more easy to play. I'll see if I can show you the. I can't hold it up this high and play it. Yeah, that for me, this one doesn't work too well, because it also causes a little bit more difficulty with the thumb. The other way is just the standard way, which you would hold a normal shakuhachi, which is now I use. I think I actually do use this part for the regular shakuhachi. I don't think I used the tips. I think I used the second joint here. I'm almost forgetting. But I actually am using like the fatty part of the first finger here, and just the fatty part of the second joint on the lower part, and then I use the middle fingers as well. So that's another option of holding. I think this is probably the most difficult way to do it, but it's just what I'm comfortable with, and I can move my fingers more quickly that way. And I've noticed that that's more successful for me, even though it does feel like a little bit strenuous. The last option is to replace those holes with a pinky, or just one of them with a pinky. So you can do this, or you can do this, or you can do both. And that's really, really helpful, especially if you have small hands like me. This will really, really work. Now, the only thing that I could see being problematic is if there's not enough meat on the pinky, you're not going to be able to cover the holes, and then you won't be making any sounds on those notes. So you might have to, experiment a lot with holding the flute. Now, the last thing I do want to talk about, with long flutes especially, and I have to turn sideways actually for this, is I see a lot of people doing this and sending the head forward. And now this is really, it's really, really not good for your back. You want to try to stay upright as possible, and thinking of the shoulders kind of coming back as far as they can, like this motion. Now you don't want to do this, because notice what happens is they go up and I'm holding tension. You don't want to do this. You don't want to come back here. You have to think of, okay, how do I stand? What is my perfect posture for standing? And then the flute is joined with that. And then you're going to be able to get a much stronger and much better sound in general. So those are just my small little tips and tricks about playing about long flutes. I would recommend actually playing some of those easier pieces first. So, for example, kyode. Kyode is a great piece to play on long flutes, and it's relatively easy because you're not moving your fingers super fast. So you can really dedicate a lot of time to getting all the dexterity and how it feels to play a long flute. Because when you first move to a long flute, you're going to want to hold it like this, and this is where your fingers would be on a 1.8 versus actually extending them outwards like this. Okay, and then what I would recommend after that, after you play some of those long meditative pieces, in order to get a little bit more dexterity, play some children's songs where you can get a little bit more of the finger movement. And then that will help as well, and especially when you're moving between the two octaves, the otsu register and the kan register. The last thing I will want to say about the long flutes is that the daikon register is actually really, really interesting. It has wonderful colors, so experiment with that as well. It will be really it's not piercingly high because you're already down a fourth. So if you're up and you're playing the daikon re, that's just the shakuhachi's regular 1.8. That's the E note. So yeah, or no, it's actually lower than that, I think. So, anyways, if you have any more questions about long flutes, just leave a comment below, and I can hopefully help you. Again, this is a place where it's my weakness, so it's actually something that I'm still working on and developing. I don't have a lot of chances to use long flutes because I do a lot. Most of the music I do is contemporary, and I think I only have at this point one piece that's written by a composer who actually lives right down the street from me, and she did a piece for 2.3. So I play that one quite frequently, but it's not a jinashi flute either. So it's not as difficult as one of these guys. So if you are interested in private lessons, I do teach online, and we go by Skype, Zoom, or even Facebook Messenger if that works best for you. I highly recommend that if you find a teacher in your local area or something to help you progress through your studies. So I hope that this video was helpful. Next week we're going to talk about short flutes.